Good morning, everyone. Trivia question. How many U.S. presidents have there been? You know it. I know you know it. Say it loud through the mask. 45. Very good. Who was the first U.S. president? Oh, you're a very intelligent crowd. I know that you love your faith just as much, if not more, than your country, so I'm sure you'll know the answer to the next question then. How many popes have there been? Couldn't quite hear you. It must be the masks. How many popes have there been? Crickets. Almost. 266. 266 legitimate popes. And who was the first pope? You just redeemed yourself. Very good. Peter was the first pope. Well, today's gospel gives us the scene where Peter became the first pope. At Caesarea Philippi, Jesus says to the apostles, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter comes forward and Peter says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And what does Jesus say back to him? "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my heavenly Father. You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." And that is the moment that Catholics believe that Jesus named Peter the first pope. Now I got to tell you something, just so you know some differences between Christians. Our brother and sister Protestants, whom we respect and who we do not bash at all, don't believe this. They believe that when Jesus said, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church," when he said rock, he was referring to Peter's confession of faith in Jesus as the Messiah. So the Protestants will say Jesus built his church on faith in him as the Messiah, not on Peter. Catholics don't believe that. Catholics believe that when Jesus said, "on this rock," the rock he was referring to was the person of Peter himself. Now, if anybody wants to sit down with me, I can explain to you both sides of the argument, Greek word for a Greek word. I'm not going to do that to you right now because for most of you, it would bore you to tears. But if any of you want to sit down, I can explain the whole argument for you. But for today's purposes, suffice it to say that we Catholics believe that the rock Jesus was referring to was the person of Peter. In that moment, he became the first pope, and all the 265 men who came after him are considered the direct successors of St. Peter. And their job is to govern the Catholic Church, to teach the Catholic Church, and we know that we believe that when they speak about faith or morals, they are infallible. Not when they speak about politics or sports or math or science or the environment, but when they speak about faith or morals in a definitive way, we believe the Pope cannot err. He is infallible. Each Pope is the direct successor to St. Peter. I want to share with you a little experience. You all know that I spent 5 years preparing to be a priest over in Rome, Italy, right? I make big sacrifices for the church. I had to go to Italy for 5 years. And when I got there were 60 guys in my class, and a priest who had been there for a long time, he sat us all down and he said to us, "Listen, guys, most of you, over the course of the 4 or 5 years that you're here, are going to have a chance at some point to meet the Pope." And he said, "I want to tell you guys, when you shake the hands of the Pope, you feel like you're shaking the hands of Peter himself." Now, when he said that, to be perfectly honest, I thought to myself, that sounds a little bit romanticized to me. Maybe he felt that way, but I've had a lot of experiences where people tell me I'm going to feel a certain way the way they do, and I don't feel that way. So I'm sure he did, but I don't think I will. Well, I got my chance. Thanksgiving 2012, I was in my second year over there. Cardinal Dolan, who was just Archbishop Dolan back then, he came over for his ad limina visit. That's a visit that bishops have to make every 5 years to the Pope to update them on what they're doing. So he came for his 5-yearly visit. We were having Thanksgiving dinner, and Cardinal Dolan says to me, "I'm going to meet the Pope tomorrow. I want you to come with me." He said, "Every bishop is allowed to bring one priest secretary with him, so you're going to come tomorrow with me." And I said to him, "That's a great honor, Your Excellency, but does it matter at all that I'm neither a priest nor your secretary? And he said, don't you worry about that. You just come with me. So the next day we went in front of these big bronze doors at the Vatican. The Swiss guards were there, not letting anybody in but the people who were on the checklist. When it came my turn to present myself, I said I was absolutely sure I was going to get kicked out. I was going to be discovered as a fraud. But my name was on the list, so they let me through. And the Vatican is this huge maze. You have to go through all of these rooms and antechambers and hallways to finally get to the Pope, who's at the end of the maze. And there were so many checkpoints with the Swiss guards. And every time we got to a new checkpoint, I was convinced that that was the end for me. They were going to catch me and kick me out. But they never did, because my first and my last name were on the list. Finally, we got to the Pope. And when the door opened, I thought, not only am I going to get kicked out now, I'm going to get excommunicated for this lie. We walked in. You know the first thing Cardinal Dolan said? He said, Your Holiness, this is David Ryder. He's a seminarian studying to be a priest in New York. And the Pope said, that's great. Welcome. Good to see you. Have a great time during your time in Rome. I took his hand, because we each got to meet him one by one, and I did what they told us we're supposed to do. I genuflected, and I kissed his ring. And as I genuflected, held his hand, and kissed his ring, do you know what I felt? I felt that I was shaking the hand of Peter himself. I really felt it. Fast forward a couple of months. Pope Benedict resigned. I don't think there was a cause and effect relationship between my meeting him and his resigning. I hope there wasn't. He resigned. Pope Francis was elected. I was there in the piazza, St. Peter's Square, when he was elected. My mom flew all the way from New York to be with me, so I was standing next to my mom when the new Pope came out. That was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And a couple months after Pope Francis was elected, I got a letter from the Vatican addressed to me. And I thought I was in trouble. I opened the letter, and the letter was a letter from the Vatican requesting me to go tap dance in a piazza in Rome in front of 5,000 young nuns and seminarians who were coming to meet the Pope on a pilgrimage. And I thought to myself, I wonder if this is the first time in the history of the Catholic Church that the Vatican has written a letter requesting someone to tap dance. I didn't want to do it, but I went to my rector. The reason I didn't want to do it is because the date of the event was 3 weeks after I was supposed to go home, and I had been in Rome 3 years. And as nice as it is to be there on vacation, I just wanted to come home and have a cheeseburger and talk American with people. I was sick of being over there. So I went to my rector and I said, I don't want to do this. What do you think I should do? And the rector said, if the Vatican tells you to do something, you do it. You're staying. So I stayed the extra 3 weeks, twiddling my thumbs in Rome. Everybody else was gone. The night came. I went up on the stage in a piazza called the Piazza Campidoglio. I was interviewed by this Italian guy who was a mixture of Ryan Seacrest and Regis Philbin. He was an Italian TV star. He interviewed me in Italian. I had to answer all the questions in Italian in front of 5,000 young people, seminarians and nuns. And then I did my tap dance for them. And humbly speaking, the crowd went wild. Okay, I got a standing ovation. They loved it. And when I finished the dance, these officials from the Vatican said to me, thank you so much. We know that this was a big sacrifice for you. And so in order to say thank you to you, we've arranged for you to meet Pope Francis tomorrow. And so the next day, when he spoke to these 5,000 young people, they put me in the front row. And when he came down the aisle, they brought him over to me and a couple of the other people who had spoken that night. And I didn't exchange any words with him. I simply looked him in the eyes, I shook his hand, and again I kissed his ring. And do you know what I felt? I felt that I was holding the hand of St. Peter himself. I really don't think that this was the psychological effect of having heard that from the priest when I got there. I really don't think so. I really believe that both times I felt that I was shaking Peter's hand for the pure and simple reason that the men whose hands I was shaking really were the successors of St. Peter himself. So those are my experiences, and I have the photographs to prove it if you want to see them. It can be easy to forget about the Pope because he lives 4,000 miles away from us. Maybe you don't completely forget about him, but it's easy not to think about him all that much. You go about your life, you got your own reality to deal with, you got your own problems to deal with, but we can't forget about him. If you moved to a foreign country, you wouldn't forget about your father, would you? No matter how far away you went, if you had a good and loving dad, you never forget your dad. Well, the Pope is our father. He's the spiritual father of the family of the Catholic Church, and we can't forget about him. And when I say we can't forget about him, that we have to remember him, I mean more than just think about him. We need to pray for the Pope. We need to remember to pray for him. You know, Pope Francis doesn't know English. He speaks Spanish and Italian very well. Recently, they found a registration that he made of an English course in Ireland. He tried, before he became Pope, to go learn English in Ireland, but he didn't have any success. He doesn't know English, but he knows 3 words in English. You know what the 3 words he knows are? Pray for me. And he says it all the time. Remember when he came to Madison Square Garden back in 2015? He did all of his talking in Spanish, except at the very end. What did he say? 3 words in English. Pray for me. Why does Pope Francis constantly beg people to pray for him? Because he's got the hardest job in the world. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he desperately needs prayers. The Pope is the father of 1.2 billion spiritual children. You parents out there, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 kids, and you think it's hard to be a parent. Imagine having 1.2 billion children. And by the way, those kids don't bring joys to him. All they ever bring to him are problems, difficulties, and challenges. 1.2 billion. He's got it hard. He's also tempted and attacked more than anybody else. Don't you think the devil goes after the Pope? There is the devil, by the way. He goes after the Pope. You hear all the time about how we priests have a bullseye on our back. The devil attacks priests more than he attacks lay people because he knows if he can take a priest down, he can take down all these lay people with him. And that's true. But if the devil goes after priests extra hard, how much more do you think he goes after the Pope? He's got a huge bullseye on his back. He needs our prayers. Do you know that when a Pope is elected, they take him to a room that's right next to the balcony where he goes then to make a speech. And in that room, there are 3 white cassocks. 1 small, 1 medium, 1 large, because they don't know the size of the new Pope. We got 3 cassocks there. There's a telephone so that he can call whoever he wants. And then there's a kneeler so he can pray if he wants. Do you know what they call that room? It's called the Room of Tears. Because so many of the men who are elected Pope, when they enter that room, break down in tears at the thought of the burden that has just been placed on their shoulders. And that's at the beginning when things seem the brightest. As they go on, they realize just how hard the job is. Nobody carries a bigger cross than the Pope. However big your cross is right now, guarantee you the Pope's cross is bigger, and he needs our prayers. So a simple question today, I'm sorry if it sounds simple, but I think it's got to be said at least once a year, right? Do you pray for the Pope every day? Even if it's just a Hail Mary, do you pray for the Pope every day? I know you've all got a long list of the things you pray for, and that's great, but is the Pope on the list? A simple way to pray for the Pope, if you pray the Rosary every day, and I sure hope you do, that very first bead after the crucifix, that's the Our Father. Always pray that Our Father for the Pope, his health, and his intentions. And if at least you do that, you know you prayed at least an Our Father for the Pope. It's also good to offer up sacrifices for the Pope. Remember when the nuns told you as a kid, offer it up for the souls in purgatory? There's so much power in fasting. You get a finger cut, somebody says something that hurts you, it's too hot outside, don't complain. Offer it up. And you can offer it up for the Pope, and it brings down so much graces on him. When the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to the children in Fatima, she taught them a prayer to say anytime they made sacrifices. She said, every time you go through any pain, you should say, "O Jesus, it is for love of you, for the conversion of sinners, and in reparation for all the sins committed against the Immaculate Heart of Mary." And the kids started saying that prayer. After a couple of months, the kids inserted the Pope into that prayer. They began to say, "Oh Jesus, it's for love of you, for the conversion of sinners, for the Holy Father, and in reparation for all the sins committed against the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And the next time Mary appeared, she said, I'm so happy to hear you offering up sacrifices for the Pope too. So we can offer up sacrifices for him. And I hope I don't even have to say, but unfortunately I think I do, we do not need to be criticizing and judging the Pope. A lot of people do it, especially Pope Francis. There's a lot of people who don't like him, and they spend a lot of time criticizing him and judging him. Totally inappropriate for a Catholic. When you're a Catholic, you love the Pope no matter who he is. A lot of people criticize him. Just last week, a priest was excommunicated by his bishop in California because he refused to say Pope Francis in the Mass. He only says Pope Benedict. And he refused to acknowledge Pope Francis as the real Pope. His bishop excommunicated him. Totally out of line. If we only directed the energy we spend criticizing and judging him into praying for him and offering up sacrifices, he and all of us would be much better off. Don't judge him, just love him, pray for him, and offer sacrifices for him. He is Peter. Okay? So how many popes have there been in history? 266. And who was the first one? Very good. Pray every day for the current one. By our prayers, we make him stronger. When he's stronger, the whole church is stronger. And when the church is strong, we are strong as we go through this very difficult journey called life.